Welcome to episode 23 of No Traps, No Glory. We have a very special guest, probably the most special guest we've ever had on this podcast so far. We tried to get Klokov on here, which would have made him the most special guest, but
yeah.
but with your arrival, John, it still would bump Klokov down to number 2.
Well, I'm very excited to be here, Dan.
Excellent, thank you.
We've been talking about this for a while.
Quite a bit, actually. So we're trying to make sure that John stays warm here. He seemed a little cold, but the fire should hopefully tend to it. Afterwards, I'll build you one of my type of fire. Once Mr. Producer gets a couple more rounds in him, he'll be amenable to that style. It's usually about 5 feet tall.
Okay.
But anyway, so how you feeling?
Great.
Yeah? Okay.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
It's been too long.
So for those who don't know, John's been training at the gym for how long now? About 3, maybe 4 years?
It might be closer to 5 now.
Yeah, it is, right? I mean, I'm trying to think, because I don't even think I was, or at least it was like right at the beginning, in the current location of the gym when we met.
You
when
had just
I did the
opened
seminar
up,
at Dave's
I
gym.
think.
Nice hat, by the way. We're going to have
Thank
to give Dave...
Dave's going to like this.
Yeah, we're going to give Dave a shout out on this.
Where we met, of course.
Exactly where we met. And I remember the first day we met. You had a lot of in-depth questions, and I remember
I was trying to hold back not to ask too many that day.
You should have. But you know, not to I don't know if I should say, but not to belittle anyone. You had the most, I guess you could say, prolific questions of anybody in the seminar. You weren't looking for quick fixes and quick answers. You were looking for more, I guess you could say, more foundational understanding of what was going on more than anything else. And that took me by, not necessarily surprise, but it was appreciated. So, and here we are. Last time John competed was at Nationals. No, you competed at Joe Rod's?
Yeah,
okay.
I did, in the fish kill, yes.
Okay, so right before the whole pandemic started, we competed in the snowstorm competition, which was not too long after we did national championships out in Salt Lake.
Did you do the snowstorm, or were you the summer one, the hot summer one?
I was there both.
Yeah,
so both extremes. We had the 100-degree plus day, and then we had the snowstorm day.
That was a good one. That didn't even faze me. It was so hot that day. But so that's how we met. But John, if you don't mind, just can you give a rundown of your vitae of your athletic career, if you will?
Sure. So Olympic weightlifting, officially, I guess, doing it maybe just 5 years.
Okay. At what age did you start?
Olympic weightlifting?
Yeah.
You mean serious stuff with you, or just kind of goofing off stuff?
Yeah. How old? So I guess like 5 years. Let's say. Like, how old were you when you started that?
So that would have been 51, 52, yeah. So
okay.
Would have been early 50s.
Okay. And prior to that, you actually have a pretty storied athletic career in track and field. So what are your accolades?
So I started throwing the javelin as well as discus and shot put many years ago.
Okay. High school,
back in high school.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess I could get a little story background on how to get started on that, because that's kind of unusual, I guess.
Yeah. Because I know when I was in high school, and especially even when I worked at it too, no one threw javelin in track and field. I mean, it was just
in New York State, there wasn't a big high school event in New York. But in New Jersey, where I grew up, it was more available. So, growing up, you do all the sports, right? You do all the seasonal sports, football in the fall, and basketball, and then baseball in the spring and stuff.
Okay.
But as with anything, there's so much luck involved in where you grow up, probably. So before high school, all the coaches were basically somebody's parent, right? So you basically... anyone who's got some time could help coach you, right? And then you get to high school, and suddenly you have like a real coach.
Okay.
And it's like night and day, right?
Someone who's a little more adept to what they're trying to teach.
It's actually,
familiar with
they're getting paid for it, right?
Yeah. So that goes.
They do it for years, and they have experience, and they're motivational. And so my high school football coach was amazing, motivational, really, really good.
Yeah.
Right. And then at the end of the season, you start thinking, all right, am I going to play basketball? Am I going to wrestle? What am I going to do in the winter? Because football's over. And all the coaches talk to you. But the football coach was actually the track coach also.
Okay.
And he approached myself and a few other people, and he goes, you guys really like football. And, next year, you want to, play JV, maybe even play varsity.
Yeah.
But you've got to get bigger. You got to get stronger. You got to get faster.
Okay.
Right? So why don't you join the track team? We'll lift a lot of weights, and we'll do some sprints and some bounding and jumping and all that sort of stuff. And, and maybe throw the shot put a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. So he got us all hooked, right? So
Yeah.
Bring a bunch in, and so we all join the team. We do a lot of lifting. It starts out with the basics, squats, bench, powerlifting sort of stuff. And then we got into some power cleans eventually and things like that. But one thing led to another. Eventually realized this coach was not only coaching at a high school, but he was coaching at a college and then coaching at a national, international level.
Okay, really?
So, he coached later on at the '96 Olympic team.
Okay.
It was really?
He was there with Mark.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is this the gentleman that you showed me the VHS videos that you reviewed at his house?
Yeah, I still go to him. He's still coaching, and
Yeah.
he's in his 80s now, and he's still pretty actively coaching.
That's great. In Jersey, this is?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. But like I said, it's just a lot of luck. I got lucky to be part of that program.
Okay.
With that coach, and one thing turned into another. I was just talking about luck a little bit. I mean, take someone like yourself.
Yeah.
Like if you were born in Eastern Europe, you could have been introduced to weightlifting at an early age.
Much earlier age, yeah.
With your body type and strength and speed.
And have a completely different trajectory from where I am now as a result, just
right.
based sheerly upon geography alone.
Right. And then if instead of Europe, maybe you were born in Canada, big ice hockey program, you could have been a big hockey player.
That.
Or
middle of Iowa,
you could have been a star wrestler.
Yeah.
You know, so there's so much luck involved. Right?
And here I am,
and
sitting outside.
And more luck involved in meeting you up with you and your group, right? So anyway, it was lucky for me to get into this program and started throwing with the shot put. And then in the spring, they introduced more events like the javelin and the discus. Okay. And they take a bunch of us out, and I start throwing the discus pretty well. And then couldn't wait for the javelin because, you know, I had a pretty good arm.
Okay.
Could quarterback in football or pitch in baseball or whatever it might be. They took a bunch of us out, and I don't know, we had 6-8 people maybe. I was like the worst.
Really?
Yeah, I was like the worst one.
The expectation that you're going to go out and dominate, and then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, really, reality check, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the coach is like, "You're just going to throw the shot put and discus."
Yeah.
Like, okay.
I'll acquiesce. Fair enough.
He says, I got 5 other people that are much better than you. We'll spend the time with them.
Yeah.
Okay. So I did that for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then junior year, you know, there were these relay events where they take, you know, 3 people from the team and they take their best throws and then they add them together. And at the time, a lot of the other people left, so they needed a 3rd person in the javelin relay. Mm-hmm. So I said, all right, it's been a couple of years, but I'll try it now.
Okay.
And then by that point, things started clicking. And I did well. Had the best throw in the state that year.
Really?
Went to Junior Olympics, took 3rd in the country.
Okay.
So I'm like, all right, maybe we got something going on here.
Yeah. What was the difference between that time frame? Just because obviously you didn't throw the javelin at all, but something must have been a contribution to.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was foundational work.
Okay. That shot put and discus helped with?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, understanding the way the body works and how to apply the forces across it. A lot like lifting.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you know, it's not all about strength; it's about technique, right?
Yeah, everything.
So,
obviously, you need a baseline, but your baseline's only as good as what your technique will allow you to do.
Right.
Obviously, you can have an extremely exorbitant amount more, but I would especially think in a throwing sport that again, diminishing returns is going to be present.
Definitely. So things kicked in.
Yeah.
It's just the right time to do that, and continued improving from there. And a couple of years later, won the junior nationals, won some international competitions against the Canadian junior teams, the Italian junior teams.
Where were
won
those?
One was in Canada, and then the Italians came here to the U.S.
Oh, really? Okay.
So, yeah.
Wow.
So,
that's cool.
and then continued in college and competing there, and then beyond too. So competing at national level for a number of years, and then actually been throwing on and off since then.
Man, this is a lifelong athlete right here. Oh, well, Mr. Producer suggests a wardrobe change. Being that it's a balmy 55 degrees out here.
35?
All right, more like 35 with a wind chill of 26. We decided John was going into convulsions, so we decided to get him a little bit warmer attire. I added a few logs to the fire, and this is my fireproof jacket since I burned holes in my previous one. So yeah, we had a little mid-show adjustment, but now we're back with episode 23. So as you were just saying, so national champion, storied career, we kind of left there. How did that go? Let's say actually you left off with being just having been a lifelong athlete. How has, like, let's say going into the training aspect of things, obviously your perspective, as you said, when you started in high school, you're just introduced to training at that point.
Right.
And now, let's say, I mean, how old were you when you were introduced in high school? Like 14,
15, yeah.
Okay. So now basically you have 40 years of training experience beneath you, as most things are beneath you. How is, obviously your perspective's changed throughout, so how do you look at that? Can you quantify it in terms of, let's say, like each 5 years, each decade, some of you just had a different viewpoint that you've carried from one to the next, or?
It's a great question, Dan. There's definitely been a lot of changes, but then there's also a lot of fundamentals that don't change.
Okay.
You know, there's just a lot of basic things that I think stand the test of time.
Yeah.
I mean, you introduced me to the Tommy Kono book.
Yeah.
I mean, that was written in what, 1950s, 1960s?
It was later than that. It was written in the 90s, but obviously.
Okay.
Yeah, he was. But obviously, everything is from
when
40s,
he was
50s,
competing.
60s. Yeah.
And a lot of that stuff still holds, right? I mean, so much of that still holds. And even when we went to the Dmitry Klokov seminar.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, he was totally focused on fundamentals.
Everything fundamentals.
Right?
Everyone thought they were going to PR everything, have a PR day, but no one got past 40 kilos.
I know. I was like, I think I'll just stick with the ladies' bar today. But yeah, so in that regard, there's a lot. But things that have changed, I think, are a lot of, prehab type of stuff. You know, things that, at my age especially, after you've gone to physical therapists and get a lot of rehab sort of exercises, you start introducing them into your daily routines to prevent injury from happening, right? So, I've got a whole list of things that I've accumulated over the years. This for the shoulders, this for the knees, this for the hips, whatever it might be.
You have three training sessions before you get to your main training session, correct?
Yeah. You've got all of that. But there is so much available today, either through the internet or wherever there might be, for so many more unique things that are good. You just have to figure out how to work that into your program. Okay. Right? That's the trick, right? To figure out what you're going to do and when to get there.
That's okay. So that kind of actually brings me to a segue point I was going to do a little bit later, but I think it just goes into a good transition to it now. Is that it is relative to a blog that you just wrote that will be posted on the website. Follow the link right above here. Mr. Can we do this? We're trying to. Okay, so follow the link here at NewYorkWeightliftingAcademy.com /blog, I believe is what it could possibly be. But anyway, about
People
a blog
will find
post.
it.
Yeah, they'll find it. Well, we'll share it. But a blog post you just wrote, and let's say as the exercise that you just had said, things that you find of value to your training and to that. And this is the premise of the blog that you just recently have wrote for us is, let's say, value in training in terms of exercises and stuff. So.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about are you strong enough? Really, it's kind of, I think, what we titled that one. And let me think about, you could think about people at the gym today, right? There's so many people that have plenty of strength. There's so much strength, right? And then they're still focused on getting more strength. Yeah. You know, and if you think about, I don't know, think if somebody wants to improve their snatch, right? And maybe they think, all right, I'm going to add 10 kilos to my back squat, or 20 kilos to my back squat. I mean, will that have a direct impact on their snatch lift? Yeah. Maybe, maybe not. Okay. You know, if you take a different approach and think about maybe if I keep the bar an inch closer to my body, that will have a direct impact on me snatching more.
You know what? I've never looked it up, and I'm sure someone's probably studied. I'm curious what or even if it's just a simple mathematical equation, what the increase in force would be of X weight per every inch that it's further away from you. Obviously the torque's going to be greater on it. So I wonder what that would translate to.
I thought I had read or heard somewhere every inch away you lose another 15% of power.
No kidding. Well, that's substantial.
I don't know. It is, right?
I mean, even if 15% is, that still is substantial. Yeah. I mean, that's 15 out of 100 right there. Right, Mr. Producer? Is my math correct? Put that 15% on the bar.
But that gets back to the fundamentals of what Klokoff would say or work on. You know, what were some of the exercises he gave to everybody? Reverse GHD with stick.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
That was his favorite. I mean, every day. You're tight, do this. Do GHD.
That one.
Your back hurts, do GHD.
We call them the Klokoff pulls. People call them whip snatch or whatever else they call them. I don't know. But yeah, do that every single training session. Yeah. Right? How many people from that seminar
are doing
did that,
now?
right?
Yeah, maybe one, and that's you.
That's me. I've been doing it. And 2 years later, I'm starting to notice some
it's something
changes.
It actually takes. Yeah,
but it took a while. But still, it was. I mean, those are some things that people can do to improve their goal of getting a higher snatch, or a higher clean and jerk, without, I'll say, killing themselves on a back squat.
Okay, and trying to do more and more and more. Outright thinking. Yeah. Because as you'd mentioned in the blog, you were saying how 1 year you just focused solely on gaining weight and getting stronger, and you had diminished returns. Yes. Whereas the following year, was it that you just didn't have the time to put that emphasis, so you just honed your skill set and you had the best season of your career. So what how do you contrast the two? Like, how do you look at it now in perspective?
Yeah. No, that's. I try to apply a lot of things from track and field into weightlifting, and I think there are a lot of similarities. Yeah. You know, talk with Mark; he'll tell you about people that excelled in both. Okay. You know, there was one shot putter that won in the same year the shot put national title and the Olympic weightlifting title. Yeah. Nationals. You know.
What was his name?
Al Feuerbach.
Al Feuerbach? Okay.
Yes, I don't know. Probably late 70s, maybe.
Okay.
1980,
that's
maybe.
Awesome.
But yeah. I'm sorry. Where were we?
About let's say contrasting.
The years. All right. So I read a lot of Dan John stuff too. He puts out some interesting things, and he had
You
talked.
can follow Dan John right here at that link.
He had once talked about, because he was a big discus thrower and a big Olympic lifter. Okay. But there were like minimums needed in strength for the throwing events. Okay. Right. And I don't know what those numbers are. Let's just say, I don't know, 120 snatch and 150 clean and jerk. Okay. Or something like that, right? Once you got those minimum numbers, you really just need to train on throwing. Okay. Right? There's no need to go above a 150 clean and jerk if you're trying to throw a javelin so far or a discus so far. Okay. Right? Because it doesn't really, it's the law of diminishing returns. Right? You're going to put a lot of time and effort into it and really not get anything back. from it.
That's because I know there are a few times I've seen like in some interviews with Russian weightlifters, they've asked what's their max back squat or what's their max front squat, and they're like, I don't know, the most I've done has been X weight for maybe 2 or something like that, and they're like, I don't know, it doesn't matter what my maximum is,
right?
Because it just, as you say, you get to a certain number, and the relationship starts to, again, diminishing returns, to where it doesn't matter what it is, and you don't even need to put that much effort further, because now you have the requisite baseline.
Yeah, exactly. So you asked about the difference between those 2 years of me throwing. One when I was very strong, a lot heavier, versus the following year when I was, focused a lot less on the weights.
Okay.
But really just focus on the basics and fundamentals of throwing and what would, generate the more speed on the javelin.
Okay.
And that turned out to be, some technical
Yeah.
things versus,
Versus
squatting
just
more.
just for the brute strength.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
'Cause I know
it's not always a one-to-one.
Hey, no,
in
the interesting.
that.
Or sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. The thought is an interesting thing with that, and I'm wondering now. I'm sure there's the definite similarity where, like in weightlifting, there is a thing as too heavy, in the sense of, let's say, especially when it comes to pulling, obviously, and squatting too, where like let's Tarakti, I know like he'll base squatting percentages off of your clean and jerk, not off of your squat, because the premise of that, and let's say against the premise of, let's say, pulling within a certain range, is that too heavy means that now you're going to lose the dynamics that you need to maintain the position and the overall speed on the bar that's going to be closely related to the lift, versus more, let's say, crossing over a threshold to where then it's more powerlifting style oriented, which even though powerlifting still does most dynamic work, but you lose the dynamics of it, and slow becomes slow, and that doesn't have any relationship to the actual lift itself.
Right.
So
and there's a big difference between powerlifting and Olympic lifting, right?
Very.
And it's hard to get that relaxed part of the body in the Olympic lifting combined with your explosive pieces too, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about, where you need that versus all power.
Just forcing your way through, grinding, muscling something out, as much as needing, let's say, a dynamic exchange, if you will.
Yeah.
So it kind of shifting gears a little bit on this. So how did you end up getting involved in CrossFit?
So for many years I've been just working on my own. Got a few weights in the basement.
Yeah.
Did some basic stuff there. Would go out and throw once or twice a week.
Okay.
And then, again, just by luck, I was kind of going for a walk. We have a rail trail near our house, and overlooks a few buildings, and one of those was where the CrossFit guys were outside actually that day, out in Nancy Court in Wappingers. They were outside and they were doing some clean and jerks out in the driveway area.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, I could do that.
What, do you think it was a challenge? You get walking with the wife, and all of a sudden you're ready to go hop over and beat up on some people?
Yeah, so I go over and introduce myself to the owner, Dave, and
really, that's what got you introduced to it.
Yeah.
There wasn't. How old were you when you started CrossFit?
Well, actually, there was something else. Yeah, one of my javelin thrower colleagues who I'd been staying in touch with, and he competed many years like myself.
Okay.
I had met him probably at a nationals or something, like for Masters Nationals.
Yeah.
And he was doing really well. And I'm like, well, man, what are you doing? You're in great shape, right? He's like, oh yeah, I started doing this CrossFit, and I own a gym now, and we do it all the time and everything. And so I started looking a little bit more about it, and that was interesting. And
that kind of you peaked a little bit by it, and
planted the seed. And then when the opportunity came, I said, all right, let me try it out.
And how'd you like it?
I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you enjoy about it?
I like the variation of all the exercises. There's a lot of skill-based sort of work.
Okay.
which is interesting because you're always trying to learn a new skill, right? And some of it's very basic, whether it's like a jump rope,
Yeah.
you know, and if you never jump rope before, and then you got to learn to do a double under jump rope sort of thing. It was very frustrating.
Yeah.
To get
Singular
started with
jumping
it
was frustrating for me. I was like, forget this.
Yeah. But there was also a lot of things that were familiar to me. Like in high school, we did a lot of things with medicine balls and jumping on boxes and you know, the Olympic lifts and all that sort of stuff. Like, this is stuff I grew up with. I did this in high school, and it's,
so it's
30 years later, it's becoming popular. I'm like, all right. So it was fun for me. Plus, it was a great group of people, and the team and the camaraderie, and the competition was good too.
Yeah, you enjoyed that competition in terms of like actually competing for CrossFit competitions, or let's say like inter-gym competition with people friendly competition.
Well, just the daily people pushing each other.
Okay.
You know, and it's not competing against each other so much, but it was like competing with each other. You know, like so, you and I working together to help each other get better at something.
Yes.
You know, and so we both win in that sort of case. It's not a me versus you sort of thing.
Yeah, it's just working together and motivating one another, really.
Yeah, yeah.
That's nice.
So that was great, and I enjoyed that so much. And then there was the famous seminar.
Yes, that's enter me.
Enter Dan Casey. There we go. Yes.
That was good. That was a really good time.
But I did enjoy it. It was really good.
I'm trying to remember even how I would have done the seminars back then. I'm sure it's drastically different than I would have done now, or would do now rather.
I'm sure you grow.
You
learn.
Yeah, learn and do more, and especially the more you do, the more you learn, and the more you can apply things. And let's say the seminar that I did the other weekend, it was just. It's been a while actually since I've done one, obviously because of the pandemic and such. So is that? It's actually the only one that I've done this year.
So what's changed for you?
A lot of.
What are you focusing on now?
Wow, man, the tables have turned. A lot of it, because as you know, like with athletics, your perspective changes, and your conceptual understanding of what you're doing, it becomes greater. So you have a greater idea of what you are. Which I mean, like the Joe Mills quote, like I said to people, you can tell me everything about track and field in 10 minutes, but it'll take me 10 years to understand what you're talking about because. I mean, you just need the time to be able to really grasp the fundamentals, time to grasp the actuality of what you're doing, and that essentially has been the same thing for weightlifting. And it's, I guess, my perspective in dealing with people, and trying not to be verbose and overly complex when trying to explain topics that have a lot of nuance and a lot of complexity to them, to keep it simple and on the, let's say, keep it on the level with the audience that I'm at, but at the same time give them good information and give them proper, like Klokov did, like fundamentals for long-term trajectory. Because everything Klokov taught at the seminar, even things I put out, you're not going to get it in a day, you're not going to get it in a week, you're not going to get it in a year. It's going to be a long time before you really can apply and understand. Like, let's say even for the Klokov seminar, the things that he was having us doing, like even like the little bit or what I have applied from that I took away from it, only now am I really starting to manifest what he was saying, and comfortably manifest and being able to apply those things. And that was, let's say, like the first seminar he did. Were you at the first one? Or
I was at the first one.
Yeah, so when was that? That was early 18?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, so let's say just about 2 years later, I'm now really being able to, at least to my understanding, I'm sure he'd have a different opinion on that, apply everything, like be able to effectually apply everything that he was telling us, or at least tenets of what he was telling us. So with seminars like that, I mean, compared to, let's say what I did at 845, it was just my understanding at the time and how I knew things at the time versus how I see things now. So perspective changes. And also too is, I mean, let's say even 5 years ago, I mean, I was really younger in my weightlifting career, my athletic age, especially training with Mark. So I was still learning and just trying to teach and instill what I was learning, trying to still understand what I was teaching as I was doing it, versus now having more of an understanding and seeing. So it's like almost like there's a greater rift between, let's say, me and the audience then versus me and the audience now. So trying to keep it at their level.
So you found a better way to speak to people or to convey your knowledge to them. Is that what you're saying too? That
I'm sure I think it's a combination of things. So let's say a better way to convey fundamentals, better way to convey knowledge, but then also have to be aware of what I say at the same time, because I don't want to be become completely befuddling to them, or to where they lose what I'm trying to say based upon, let's say, a more advanced understanding, if you want to consider it that.
Okay.
So, like to try to teach a complete beginner to do something well, but at the same time be able to conceptualize what they're doing well and understand it, but like to maximize that without crossing the threshold of just being like, what just happened here type of thing.
Okay.
So I think it probably an improved ability of that, just like improved technique in lifting, improved technique in being able to get message across and explain things. So that brings me into the next topic. Obviously, in your lengthy and storied career, injuries.
Yes.
How obviously I'm assuming injuries have reared their ugly head throughout. And as you said earlier, like different exercises that you incorporate now for your training in order to be able to actually train. How, let's say, over the course of your career, how have injuries affected you, and how do they affect you now, or do they affect you now?
Yeah, I've definitely had my share of injuries.
Okay.
Nothing too serious, but I've had surgeries on both knees and both shoulders.
Yeah.
Soon to be hip. But I've been lucky otherwise. No broken bones, nothing really serious. But yeah, dealing with injuries, coming back after surgery or after coming back from an injury, I think the tendency is to let me get back full speed as fast as I can. It's like I've kind of learned to take my time a little bit.
Okay.
Although it's been hard, it's been many years of trying to rush back and eventually realizing you have time. You're going to be able to compete again, whether it might not be next month or later this year, but you want to do it right. You don't need. I guess it's with training too. There's no shortcuts. You want to do it right. So if you're coming back from an injury or you're trying to train around it, it's a time to maybe work on some of your weaknesses.
Okay.
So if you've got bad shoulders, maybe you could do some more lower body work, or vice versa. If your knees are bothering you, maybe a chance to. Mike B would say, do some handstand push-ups, right? That would be something that would eventually help you out in a lot of different ways.
In many ways.
And no impact on your knees, right? So, if you do have some injuries, do it right as far as coming back. And also figure out, are there some weak areas that I can take this opportunity to get better at, and I think that's been something a hard lesson to learn.
Okay.
The other hard lesson to learn, especially as you get older, as I've gotten older, is when not to push.
Okay.
That's also been looking back at some causes of the injury. One point in time I was training for the Masters World Javelin event. There was a World Championship coming up, and I was actually in pretty good shape for my age at that point. Okay. And I went to train with my old coach, who was coaching at college. I had a really good training session, and then I'm watching the other college kids. I'm like, I could still throw with these guys. So then I started going harder and pushing more, and just getting
the
in it.
Natural competitor of you.
Yeah, and then next thing my knee kind of tweaks. It feels a little weird and a little funny, and
Yeah.
You know, I ended up having a little tear
No kidding.
in the knee from it, and so still went to compete at the Worlds, but didn't do as well
as a
I
result
would have
thereof.
liked. Yeah.
Okay.
And then had to have surgery a little bit afterwards.
Oh, no kidding! Wow.
Yeah, but that idea of like sometimes good is good enough. You don't need to keep pushing it a little bit more. And that's an individual thing that people just have to learn, or sometimes a coach will help
restrain them if they
restrain that. Yeah, help them from hurting themselves, sort of thing.
Okay.
You know?
That's interesting, because that's something, again, everybody, a lot of people, especially in weightlifting, you just want to do more. You want to do more. You want to do more, but more doesn't come every training session. More comes over time.
Yes, yeah. Well, Tommy Kono, I think it was Tommy Kono, talked about, when you get a PR one day in the gym, you don't need to go up again. Do that same number again.
Yeah.
Try to repeat it and get more comfortable at that new weight, that new level.
Yeah.
But don't rush into the next tier. Just kind of increase your confidence that you can do that new PR more than once.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember one thing. I forget why I was asking you something one time. I don't remember what it was. And you again referenced Father Kono, but you said how at a time when you feel really good and you're doing really well, as counterintuitive as it may be, to then at that point take time off.
Yeah.
I don't remember if you remember what I asked you. I don't remember at all, but essentially the point being that when you get a point where you feel really good and you're doing well, don't get greedy and try to continue to push it. Do the opposite of what you would normally think and just mellow out, because obviously I would assume that at that point your body's at its peak level, so you're not going to go beyond that.
Yeah, that's so counterintuitive and such a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah, the ego gets involved.
The ego, totally gets involved with it. I remember back in college, I would get sick like every winter.
Okay.
Just from like a cold, but it was like a bad cold.
Yeah.
But looking back, it always happened after like several really good training sessions when I would hit a new mark in a clean or a squat or something, and I just kept pushing it. And I don't know the whole science of it, but I'm guessing there's some sort of central nervous system adjustment that, all right, you can dial it up 5%.
Well, because your immune system...
But then you got to get used to that.
But your immune system is responsible for your recovery, so when you start pushing harder on that, you're stressing your immune system, and it's not going to have as much... You're just going to be that much harder to fight off any sort of virus, bacteria, anything like that.
Exactly, and I guess that's another lesson learned, is recovery is really important.
Yes.
And you've talked to a number of our athletes about that.
Recovery is everything.
Right?
Yeah, very much. I know I've got Mr. Producer on the recovery train. He enjoys going to the sauna regularly. He
looks happy about it.
He is happy about it. He loves going. So.
Basically saying he's doing well by not lifting heavy all the time.
Yeah, very much.
And he's making more progress that way.
And that goes back to what I was saying earlier about such a thing as being too heavy, because you start losing dynamics, you start losing speed and the contractibility of your efforts, the muscular efforts to be able to perform the exercise. And again, it's most people have the need to go heavy because I don't think it's, partially an ego thing, but it's like a confidence thing. And if you're not going heavy, like, oh God, if I'm not lifting heavy, how am I going to be able to lift heavy? It's like, well, that's the point of the sport. It's not a heavy sport. It's a heavy sport, but you have to lift heavy, but you need technique, and you need to be confident within your technique and your ability to how you move, not what you move.
Exactly. And you can relate it to other sports too, right? Someone hitting a baseball, they have power, but they also need to be relaxed in order for that swing to happen, right? Or a golfer. If you or I try to go and hit golf ball as hard as we can, it's going nowhere except behind us or
any direction except the right direction.
Not forward, that's for sure.
Yeah. And that's actually, like I say in a lot of the seminars that I do now, is that weightlifting is a martial art, and it's a skill form or an art form and a skill that you have to learn that takes years to be able to perform. No one walks into a karate school expecting to be a black belt after a month. And for whatever reason, it seems just like that's something that's implicitly understood. Everyone understands, oh, it takes a long time, or I'll never. Actually, the opposite, oddly enough. It seems like when it comes to a martial art, people will have the concept that, oh, I'll never get there, I'll never be able to do that. But when it comes to like a weightlifting type of thing, it's like, I want more now, I want more now. And it's like, but
Right.
they're one and the same. You have to practice the skill in order to get the result. You can't get the result without practicing the skill.
Yeah, yeah. And how, I mean, maybe we could talk a little bit about
We talk about whatever you want,
different
John.
approaches in training versus competitions. And
Interesting.
why some people do better in, say, training than competition, or vice versa.
Yeah. Have you found it, kind of going on that, and I'll let you elaborate more in a moment. Have you found, because I know for weightlifting, for myself, for others that I've coached, there have been times where training leading up to a competition has been just garbage, basically, but you end up somehow pulling out a wonderful competition, and then times where your training is, you feel unstoppable, king of the world, then you get to the meet, and you bomb out. It's
Right,
like,
right.
It's like, what, I mean, I think that's an interesting contrast with that, and have you experienced that in track and field, or it's similar?
Oh yeah,
before, or?
definitely in track and field all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were definitely so many learnings from competitions in which I thought I was going to do well and then didn't do well.
Yeah.
And then, over time, if you learn lessons from there, then you apply them later
Yeah.
at some other points. Here's a quick story. So,
Please.
when I was
Our viewers love the stories. They're for real.
so when I was 18, went to the junior nationals,
Okay.
and I was in great shape, right? And I was really pretty confident going in. And this was somewhere, Indianapolis, I think. Somewhere
Okay.
never been out there before,
Yeah.
right? So the way it's set up is there's probably about 20 competitors, and they break them up into 2 flights of 10 each,
Okay.
an A and a B.
Yeah.
Right. So the B goes first. They all get 3 throws, and then the A will get 3 throws, and then
Okay.
they'll bring back the top 8 for 3 more throws. So they've
Okay.
got like a final with combined of the best 2
Okay.
heats, basically, right? So the B flight went, and I happened to be in the A flight,
Okay. Naturally.
based upon seating.
John's an alpha, as we know, so.
So start warming up just before my flight's supposed to take off, and I'm throwing great.
Yeah.
I'm like 20 feet beyond everybody else in the prior flight, right? So I'm like, all right, I'm excited about this, right? Beautiful, sunny weather. It's
like
summer.
You couldn't ask for anything more. Topless girls in the stands. I mean, everything you could ever dream of.
And then these sirens start going off.
Okay.
Like the whole town, like all these sirens,
Yeah.
and everyone's like scrambling around doing something.
Really?
I'm like, what's going on? So I just sit down, and I've got all stuff and shoes and warm up stuff and sweats and all that stuff.
Was it the Soviets?
There's a tornado warning.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know anything about tornadoes. Like, what the heck,
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of hanging out, thinking I'll just sit this out because it's still pretty nice out. And then
You
like,
sat through a tornado and the thing went
no,
over you and
people
you
start
didn't
dragging
move.
me off the field.
Oh,
And
okay.
I'm like, I got to grab all my stuff and
Yeah.
you grab. Anyway, we everyone has to go and seek shelter for like an hour in the school or something. We come out later. All right, you guys continue your
Where'd you
warm-ups.
seek shelter? You go in like a
It was like a school
bomb shelter or
no,
oil
it was just
tanker?
inside the school
Yeah?
or
All right.
something. But the weather completely changed. You
Yeah.
know, now the pressure had dropped.
Okay.
It was cloudy and the wind has changed. All this stuff, and suddenly all of our throws were going like nowhere near
Really?
the distance they were an hour before.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, oh my goodness.
That was for
terrible.
everybody or just you?
Well, that was for everybody in the A flight.
Okay, okay.
So I ended up making the finals. But nobody could touch the distances from the original
No
B
kidding.
flight. So I don't know, I placed, 3rd or 4th or something. Didn't make the team. They
Okay.
were going on some nice trip to Venezuela, which was
really?
a nice place to visit at the time.
Prior to socialism getting its tendrils deep within the country and destroying it. Did you know, John, prior to that mess, Venezuela was the #1 importer of F-150s.
I did not know that.
Now you know. And then
have
Chavez
some
and the
knowledge.
socialists got in control and took that country, an oil-rich country, and turned it into an abysmal failure that it is now. But we'll use this to segue. Yeah, I was going to say, like, thinking about it, literally every single weightlifting trip that I've gone on, I've taken away some gem from somebody that has, like, it made the entire trip worthwhile.
Yeah.
In some way. I remember, like, every time
You can learn from everybody.
You can, yeah. And that's like when I went to Canada, I just overheard some coach saying something to somebody, and I was like, wow. Like, just the phrasing alone put everything completely, like, everything that it just, not even like it was new, novel information. It just put it in an entirely different perspective and just recategorized my understanding of everything. That's good.
Well, that's I think as you grow as a coach, it's not the content of what you say. It's going to be how you say it, and depending upon the athlete, you may have to say it 7 different ways to 7 different athletes, but the same concept is there.
Yeah, the verbalization, or however you get that
you're
across.
kind of learning, like, well, that's an interesting way to say exactly what I'm trying to show these people.
Yeah. And with that too is that, like, I've also even learned from different people, like, just different styles of technical instruction from what I was learned, like different philosophies, if you will. But even learning from them has been like, okay, it's like picking one thing, understanding, learning how to, like, okay, I completely see how this can apply and use it differently. Or even like the time when I went to Wisconsin and coached a buddy of mine, just something for his last clean and jerk, just however he did the jerk, something clicked, and I was just like, wow, okay, I get that now.
Yeah.
It was just completely different from, like, my any prior understanding that I've had of it. And it was just even not even verbal. It was just watching someone do something from the angle that I was at, where it just, like, changed my entire perspective of it. But it was like a missing link or the one missing puzzle piece for the entire puzzle that was done.
Right.
And it was like, okay, I get it now.
And that's where you see a difference between some of the best coaches and just average coaches. It's kind of how they are conveying the information in different ways to different people. I'm going to let you in on a secret.
Yeah, what do you got?
Okay.
I like secrets.
Suzanne after a training session, she and I would talk. Yeah. And she would say, well, this is what Mark said, or this is what Dan said. Yeah. But this is how I interpret it and say it differently. And so she had her own sort of translation sort of script for what you and Mark would say.
It's so funny.
Made more sense to her in the way she would receive and understand the information and apply it. Yeah. And then, so I started doing that myself too. So I kind of have a little guide of, here's what Dan says and here's what it means of how I should take it and do something with it.
Because I have one of those too. From with Mark, with the exact thing, like, and I would just say that to, let's say, like, someone he had, like, either Nikki or Brooke or someone that was working with it, or E, and be like, exactly that. It's like, listen, when he says this, I understand it as this, but it took a while for me to take what he was saying and finally understand. Like, let's say, like, one for the jerk, he's like, always would be, oh, you're pushing too long, you're using arms too long. Right. And I would then, I'd actually create more problems for myself by doing that, because then I'd be like, oh, so then I would I'd split even sooner. I would create more problems initially by listening, but then finally, again, like, you just over time understand it differently. So now it's like, okay, when he says I'm pushing too long, I think the exact opposite. I say, okay, I'm not using my legs enough. I have to stand up longer. Yeah. And then that's the understanding of what they're saying versus how I have manifested is entirely different. Right. So I get you. I know what you're saying with that. And but knowing that, I don't like when people, like, say things to one another or try to, like, I don't have problems with it, because I've been there. I know what that's like, to where it's like, I mean, there's only so many ways I can verbalize something. You never know what's going to register with someone. Right. Even like all the trips that I've gone on, I never knew that just being there or just seeing someone or talking with a friend or watching someone was going to be the catalyst for a completely different philosophical approach. Yeah. It's just, but that's how the nature of the sport is, where you just, whenever that comes, all of a sudden you have these revelations through the course of your career and through the course of time.
And that's one of the things I love about weightlifting
Yeah.
is the mental approach,
Mm-hmm.
the cerebral aspect, where
Mm-hmm.
you have to think about things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But you don't want to think too much either. So you got the
Yeah.
balance between
Yeah.
the two. But
Because you have to, like I tell Mr. Producer,
he's shaking his head.
well, he knows all too well. I tell him he has to go full retard when he gets to certain weights. He can't write
Yeah.
his hypothesis on it. He's just got to go
But
short bus.
things are different for everybody, right? You've got a
Yeah.
different approach
Mhm.
and different solutions
Yeah.
for.
And you have to find solutions. That's what the one thing
Yeah.
that's always been great about Mark is that there was never a shortage of trying to find a solution
Right.
and trying to find a way to make it click.
Yeah.
And it's just the millions of ways of saying the same thing over, or inventing exercises to try to create that
Yeah.
whatever message or medium you're trying to get across.
Well, you and I did that last year with my snatch. Where
Yes,
I was
we did.
struggling with my shoulder mobility and my hip mobility, and
Mhm.
we went from a power snatch because I
Yeah.
wasn't squatting
Yeah.
enough to do a squat snatch to
Mhm.
a split snatch,
Yeah.
and been very happy with that since I made the switch, and that was
There you go. I remember with first Mrs. Hardy, the week before a competition, the week before she was going to compete up in.
that's always a good time to change things up.
Usually is. It usually is a great time to decide to. But that was Bethel. It was a competition in Bethel, and the week before, I don't know why. I think she's just getting partially burnt out and just so frustrated. Had her switch to a split snatch the week before because she always had
And she did well with it.
she had a decent she had a good split when
Yeah.
she would do the split like for split
for a
jerks.
jerk.
And then that said competition, and mind you, a week prior, she ended up snatching a record at the meet. So she's,
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes
Right,
you have to adapt. You have to be willing to
It's-
find ways to adapt.
Right, taking that approach, taking the learnings, and just
Yeah.
applying it differently to different athletes and people, and
Yeah.
see what's gonna
See how it's going to stick.
see what's gonna stick.
Well,
Exactly.
John, I appreciate you coming out here in the freezing cold and
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
getting near hypothermic. I don't know if our audience knows this, but the best way to stave off hypothermia is to get naked and cuddle. So I don't know if you want to record this, but we're going to try to bring John back to full temperature.
Gotta go.
Follow us on these. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and on YouTube. These links here above that our producer will put into the header. John, again, thank you. Appreciate you coming out.
What a pleasure, Dan. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been for me as well. And we'll see you next time.